Hello and welcome to another edition of Sunbelt Hoops with Nate and Matt, Countdown to Pensacola, and this is episode 4, Nate. And next week, the Sunbelt Tournament tips off in Pensacola. We are finally right there.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. The season is slow until you're in the middle of it, and then it goes by in a heartbeat. And I'm sure for the coaches and players as well.
Absolutely, and when you get at the end, it's kind of like a sprint then because you see the tape in front of you and you're trying to break that tape. But coming up here in podcast number 4, we're going to talk to Louisiana head coach Bob Marlin. As Ragin' Cajuns have hit a little bit of a tough patch here, but they still have a path to the number 4 seed depending upon what they're able to do this coming week, and we'll talk to him about that. We'll also take a look at the big stories of the week. App has a chance to wrap up the number 1 seed in the regular season championship coming up on Wednesday. We'll talk about that. Plus, we'll name our teams of the week. We'll name our starting 5 for the week. Look ahead to the biggest games of the week, and we got some big ones. And we'll take a look at if the tournament started today, which it will do in a week. So, all right, let's jump ahead to story number 1, and that is that Old Dominion coach Jeff Jones announces his retirement. Now, he had actually come back to the team on Saturday for Senior Day to be there for the Monarch senior Jason Wade, who unto himself has been through the ringer with multitude of injuries, a once promising career really plagued by these injuries. So Jeff Jones wanted to come back to Chartway Arena on Saturday night and honor his senior who he had signed and had played for. And of course, you know, Coach Jones has been through the ringer too, had a heart attack when the team was out in Hawaii playing in the winter tournament there, and he's also undergoing prostate cancer treatment. So now he's announced his retirement. I can't say that I'm really surprised that he has done this.
Well, and we just hope, obviously, for his health and well-being. But they put 6,200 people in the arena. It's a team that's not won a lot of basketball games this year. They didn't know he was going to show up for senior night. He showed up right before the game, went out very emotional at center court with the 2 seniors he had, and the one you just talked about went through all those injuries. And then not taking anything away from the game, he said he left. And they won. They beat Coastal Carolina, close game, and then blew them out at the end. But very emotional night for him. I used to love senior nights, and I used to hate senior nights as a coach because these seniors, they're done. And you went through so many great things with them and tough things with them. And especially for these 2 young men here, I went through a lot of physical injuries and stuff like that. And Coach went through his thing. But being emotional is completely understandable. And with an almost sellout crowd in that Chartway Arena, that's great for those kids and great for those seniors to send them out with a W.
Well, we certainly wish Coach Jones the best and a speedy recovery. I had read where he reportedly he's taken off 30 pounds, undergoing a vigorous exercise, workout routine, so good for him. Take care of his health. And that's going to be a really nice job. You mentioned it. They're 3-13 in the Sun Belt this year. But remember last year, they're a top 4 seed. A couple of years ago, They won a Conference USA championship. And it's a program that is supported very well. Despite the fact they're last in the Sun Belt, they're first in attendance. They will have a number of big-time candidates for that job. But our first and foremost is our well wishes and to Coach Jones, and congratulations on a fabulous career as a player and then as a coach. We'll miss him in the conference.
Great player, Virginia. And then, of course, the coach there. And I saw one comment, Coach Donnie, you mentioned the weight loss, said he looked great when he came to the game. So that's good for him, really happy.
All right, let's move ahead to story number 2, big story number 2. App State, 1 win away from the number 1 seed and the regular season championship. They can get it if they can beat Old Dominion, a team they just beat last week. Now they'll play the Monarchs in Boone. It's been a record-breaking season. Last week, 2-0, beat Old Dominion, beat Marshall. They're now 24-5, 14-2 in the conference. Miles Tate had a huge game against Marshall on Saturday, and we'll talk more about Miles Tate later on in the podcast.
Well, they finish at home, Old Dominion, and then Arkansas State goes up to Boone from their game at Coastal midweek. So, yeah, if they can get one, it'd be great. Old Dominion's going to have a little bit extra juice, I would think, after Coach Jones stepping down. Coach Donohue's been the coach, like you said, since they were out in Hawaii. But the Mountaineers have been good all year. They've been really good at home. And we'll see if they can seal the deal here. Number 1 seed is great, but it can all fall apart when you get down to Pensacola. But I'm sure Coach Kern's company will take number 1 seed going into Pensacola.
And you get the banner. You get to raise a banner, and that's always special. That banner is going to be there forever. So, big story number 3, James Madison keeps their NCAA tournament resume intact. I mean, they were on the precipice of falling right out of the conversation. They were down 19 at Georgia Southern. They come back and beat the Eagles at the Hanner Fieldhouse 80-74. So their record-winning season total continues. They're now at 26 total wins, 26-3. They're second in the Sun Belt at 13-3. Their net ranking right now had gotten as high as 45. And right now it's 50. They actually lost 5 points despite the fact they beat Georgia Southern. But any thought of being an at-large team would have died had they lost to the Eagles on Saturday. And in a weird way, and of course the number 1 goal is to win the tournament championship and get the auto bid. But for the Sun Belt, in a weird way, Nate, getting an at-large berth out of the Sun Belt is almost a bigger thing than winning the conference championship, because that's recognition from the NCAA committee that you guys are legit and we're not just automatically putting you in. You've earned your way in.
Well, unfortunately, I saw an NIT projection this week. And speaking of JMU, they finish on the road. I think they're at Georgia Southern, Georgia State, and then they go to Coastal for the last game. So they finish on the road, and obviously great comeback being down by 15 at the half to win last week. But I saw a projection, and the NCAA now runs the NIT. There's no automatic regular season champion goes to the NIT. But they had him, and the NCAA, I've always said this, has a little bit of a sense of humor with their NIT stuff. They got him against Virginia in the NIT, I saw that. Hopefully that's not the case, depending on what happens, obviously, this week and then when they get to Pensacola. But it would be a great accolade to get 2 from the Sun Belt. It hadn't happened in a very long time. And because of the 2 games they have left, even if they win them both, their net might drop even a little more because of Georgia State and Coastal's record.
Right.
But we'll take the 2 wins and take their chances.
No doubt about it. And look, make no mistake, the goal is to win the conference championship in the tournament. We're talking about, but we talk about James Madison in this regard because they're the only team that has the resume to possibly be considered if they don't win the tournament championship. All right, big story number 4, Troy locks down a top 4 seed in the Sun Belt. They join App and JMU, so 3 of the 4 spots are locked down, means you get the double bye. They split the week with Arkansas State and at ULM. Since they had won 6 straight and taking over first place in the conference, they've gone 2-2, but they haven't exactly stumbled. They fall into 3rd place. Both losses came to Arkansas State, one of the hottest teams in the Sun Belt, and both wins came against ULM, a team that you take away those Troy losses, they've won 7 of their last 9. So Troy isn't necessarily not playing well, but they're now in the 3rd spot. But the big news for them is 2nd, 3rd, 4th, really doesn't matter. You get that double bye.
Well, and 2-2 doesn't sound good, but the 2 losses are maybe to the hottest team in the Sun Belt right now.
No doubt.
The Eagles of Arkansas State. And it's crazy how some of the teams travel a bunch for their last 4 games, but it seems like some of the teams are playing the same, like Southern Miss playing the same team twice in a week, and Arkansas State, and Troy as well. So I don't know how it works out that way, it just does. But the 2 losses to Arkansas State are not terrible because of who Arkansas State is at this time of the year. But still 2 to go, and they're in the top 4. And like you said, 1 is great, but the top 4 is so much better you don't play the first 2 rounds.
So here's the thing about the schedule. I'm sure the coaches, when they get together in the post-season meetings, are going to have a conversation about this.
Sure.
So, for instance, James Madison closing on the road for, a 2-game road trip last week, 2-game road trip this week. The thing about it is, it's not a 4-game road trip. It's a 2-game road trip, come back home, and then go back out for another 2-game road trip. So that really makes it doubly difficult. If it was just 4 games out on the road, that'd be tough enough. But you'd be traveling from one city to the next city to the next city. But it's not like an NBA 4-game road trip.
Sure.
The travel back home unpack, repack, get back out on the road makes it difficult. So we'll see if they address those 4-game stretches. A number of teams have had those.
True.
Of course, the flip side of that is you're getting those 4-game stretches at home too. So that's the flip side of the argument. Well, we'll see what that happens with that. Big story number 5: Arkansas State jumps into the top 4 party. It's hard to say they're the hottest team in the Sun Belt because you got to have James Madison on long winning streaks too. But maybe the most recent hot team in the Sun Belt went 2-0 this past week. Nationally televised victory over Troy. That was big for the program. That was big for the Sun Belt. And then they beat South Alabama. They're 7-1 in their last 8 games. Their only loss in those 8 games, a 4-point setback to James Madison. And the game before that, 8-game stretch started. It was an overtime loss at ULM. Their 6 Sun Belt losses, Nate, by a total of 24 points. They have not had a double digits loss this season since December 4th at Alabama. And they close on the road at Coastal, at App. They likely got to win out this week to get and hold on to that top 4 seed.
Yeah, they're there now. But as you just said, they got 2 big games, especially the one up in Boone to finish the season. That might make them top 4 or not top 4. Of course, it depends what the other teams do. But Caleb Fields is playing great. He's been great his whole career there, but now under a new system and Coach Hodges, he's playing even better. He's unbelievable in assists. And they make more threes and shoot it better than anybody in the league, and they believe in that. And they're really fun to watch. I'm going to have them at Coastal Carolina this Wednesday. So that's going to be a really fun team to watch. And they're going to be special when they get to Pensacola if they keep this roll going for the last weekend of the season.
Like I said on last week's podcast, I really believe Caleb Fields is a candidate for Player of the Year in this conference. Now, he doesn't have the points per game numbers that maybe someone like a Terrence Edwards or one of those guys or Kobe Julian has, but he's around, 10, 11, 12 points per game. You throw in the assists, which are 6 a game, so that's 12 more points. He's accounting for anywhere from 25 to 30 points per game for his Arkansas State team.
Yeah, he doesn't get them, but he creates them, and that's just as good. As long as they go up on the board for the team, it's all that counts.
Totally agree. All right, big story number 6. Don't sleep on Southern Miss. They could be a team to watch in the Sun Belt tournament if they can keep Andre Curbelo and Victor Hart healthy. Both are back after lengthy absences due to injury. Curbelo was a big-time player at Illinois as a freshman, all-freshman team at Illinois. When they were a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, he was the 6th man of the year in the Big Ten. After an injury-plagued sophomore season, concussions, same issue he's dealing with now, went back home to New York, played at St. John's, now at Southern Miss, in only 9 games this season. He's only played 9 games, recently came back from a 10-game stretch and had 24-point games against Texas State and Louisiana. And since returning from missing 10 out of 11, 6'6" forward Victor Hart has combined for 28 points, 21 rebounds, and 71 minutes in the last 2 games, and they've got a chance. If they win out this week, they could be the number 4 seed.
Of course, Coach Latner taking a leave of absence there, and Coach Cordonia taking over. Victor Hart was averaging around 13. He misses a ton of games, comes back. He averages around 13. Curbelo is really special. He goes Saturday, and you said Saturday and Saturday, he scores 24 each after missing all those games. The midweek game, he had some issues and didn't play a lot of minutes. Coming back from concussion syndrome and all that stuff, it's tough. But they're going to have, obviously, 2 this weekend like everybody else. Then they get a little bit of a break and then go down to Pensacola. If those 2, as you just said, can stay healthy, they can account for a lot of points. You get one hot guy in a tournament like Curbelo, you give him 24 a night, they can beat anybody. I mean, they really can. He's that talented and he's that good.
And if they win out this week, and we'll address these scenarios later, if they win out this week, which means winning on the road at Louisiana on Friday night, a Louisiana team they beat in Hattiesburg on Saturday, and they get the help. The big caveat is the help that both Louisiana and Southern Miss have to get from App State to beat Arkansas State on Friday. And we'll address all of that a little bit later on. But there's no doubt, I agree with you. They can win the tournament. And plus, if you get that double bye, that's basically another whole week for Curbelo and Hart to get healthier.
No question. And let's not forget, Austin Crowley's preseason player of the year. He's a really good player in that team. They got a lot of talent.
He's had a great season.
Yep.
And he might, and he could repeat as player of the year
Sure.
after being preseason. He's certainly going to be first team All Sun Belt. Time now to welcome in Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns head coach Bob Marlin. And Coach, thanks a lot for being with us.
Glad to be here, guys.
It's
Appreciate
been a little
it.
bit of a tough patch for you guys. Y'all were playing very well. I think you'd won 10 out of 11, and then you hit a 3-game losing streak. All 3 of those games on the road, all 3 of them against either teams at the top or a team in ULM who has been playing very well. But you still have a clear path, a little bit of help needed from App State, but still have a path to get to that top 4 seed. What's kind of the message to your team heading into this week?
Well, first of all, we were playing really well, and then Nate gave us some love, and we started losing. So I'm going to put it off on him. But no, we ran into that second 4-game road swing. We're the only team in the league that had to do 2 of those. And it was a little more taxing than we thought. We won the first one at ODU, and then we led App with 10 minutes to go and got beaten that game up there. And then Monroe played really well, and Southern Miss played really well. So the league's been really balanced, and our message right now is to get the guys focused, and we're back at home. We've been very good at home over the last several years, and even though we got 2 tough opponents, it's time to start making some shots and playing good basketball again.
Coach, I love watching Kobe Julian because of what he's been through physically and all that stuff, but he's got the been there, done that factor, especially last year. What does he mean to this program? Forget the basketball part, the rest of what he brings to the program.
Well, he's a legacy. His dad, Wayne, played here for Jim Hatfield and Bobby Paschal. And Kobe has been a guy that committed to us, signed out of high school, got hurt right in February about this time in high school, and they won the state championship. And they put on their rings at Madison Prep, do it for Kobe. And that's how much he meant to his teammates. That tells you a little bit about the young man. But
sure,
to see him come back from 2 patella surgeries and 2 ACLs, it's quite gratifying, to be honest, Nate, to see him play well. He did it last year when he came back at the end of in the NCAA tournament. He was our best player in the second half, and Greg Williams was hurt. Kobe stepped up, scored 15 points, and kept us in the game with Tennessee. So that was gratifying, and then to make one shining moment for him was I thought was pretty cool. But this year he's just done it consistently, and he hasn't shot the ball as well lately as he did early. But there was a stretch there when we won those 4 road games in a row where he was making everything.
You mentioned the game against Tennessee in the NCAA tournament. I mean, he went through it. I think he scored 11 of your 13 points when you guys made that push on the Volunteers in the second half and made it very scary for the folks on Rocky Top and nearly pulled off the upset there. It was a lot of fun to watch. Just going back to the schedule a little bit, you mentioned the 4-game stretches, and I know this is kind of the first year they've had this bunch up. And when you talk about 4 games on the road, as we were talking about in this podcast before, it isn't like it's a 4-game road trip. It's a 2-game road trip, come home, unpack, pack back up again, and go back out again. So it's really, I think, doubly tough. It's a little bit misleading in that it's even tougher than if you just went out and played 4 games on the road and came back home.
Yeah, it could be. The first group we lost actually to Troy. In our second conference road game, we lost at Marshall to open, and then we lose to JMU to go 0-2. That game was at home. It broke our winning streak, and back when they were in the top 20. But we go to Troy, and we don't play well. We have 20 turnovers, our season high, and we still had the lead with 2 minutes to go on the ball and turned it over 3 times in a row. So that kind of jump-started our next game at Ark State, and we played extremely well. Hosanna Katingate came in and gave us a big boost in that game and has been pretty steady ever since. And we were able to come back home, and then, as you said, Matt, we took off and went to Texas State on a Wednesday night. came back and then left Friday afternoon here after class and practice and went over to Mobile and played a really good game at Mobile too to get to end that 4-game stretch. But it's a challenge. Again, we're the only teams that had to do it twice. Some of the teams like Troy are doing it to finish the year, and that's not easy either. But hopefully it won't be as bad next year.
Hopefully you can get that straight with your meetings and all. You just brought up Hosanna Katinge. I knew him when he was a freshman at Coastal Carolina when I did their games. And since the conference play has started, he's really been playing well. But I love to watch him play because all he does is smile the entire time. I mean, he just has a good time out there, and he's playing really well for you now as they're getting into deep in the conference play.
Yeah, Nate, he's you've seen him. You know how much he's improved.
Oh, yeah.
He went through a knee surgery as well at junior college, and then had a really good year at Three Rivers last year. And we felt like he could come in and help us. And he's done exactly what we thought he could and some. Very skilled with the ball. But he's having the best basketball experience of his career, and you can tell.
It's great.
Yeah, it's good to see.
Watch.
And you've had to have guys like him and Joe Charles, who I think may be the most underrated player in the conference, maybe the surprise player of the conference. If they gave out an award for most improved, biggest surprise, I think Joe Charles might be that guy.
Yeah, he's been fantastic, Matt. I think he and Kobe Julian are both all-conference players. Kobe, of course, was 2 years ago, and then the last regular season game at Georgia State, he was injured, and that was the year we got beat in the championship game by Georgia State down in Pensacola. But both those guys have played well. And Joe, we asked him to rebound the ball more because we're not as big as we've been. And he's been fantastic rebounding the ball and had some great games. And I'm not exactly sure, but I know last week I think he was leading the league in conference games in rebounding. And we've said, I've told the coaches at the league meetings before, we think he's the best defensive player in the league too. And he's a 40% shooter.
He gets a boatload of steals every game.
Yeah, he's got great hands, Matt, great reflexes. And he understands the game. I mean, he really has a great feel for the game. And whether he's at the tip of our press or guarding a post player or guarding, like last year was at Isaiah Moore, we had to put him on him at times from South Alabama. The little guard is just eating everybody up. So his length and his smarts and his reflexes are huge for him as a player.
Coach, I'm sure you haven't brought this up to your team yet because you obviously got 2 big games to go in the conference. But there's a lot of guys, and Katinge is the new guy, like in the 5, that have been there, done that in this tournament, were really good last year. How much do you rely on that? We've done this before when you get to Pensacola, once these 2 games are over.
Well, we feel like we've got a good nucleus back, Nate. We felt like we were overlooked from day one. And we played like it for most of the year in the middle of the season. But we've got to get back to defending and doing the things that we did and making shots. But having our starting backcourt back that won the conference tournament, played in the championship games, you said Kobe and his experience in the NCAA, Matt said. We knew Joe Charles was a starter last year. We took Terrence Lewis late as a grad transfer and to give us more depth. And Joe took a back seat a little bit. Terrence was fantastic. And then a couple of the other guys. Mike Thomas started in the championship game 2 years ago against Georgia State, a backup point guard. So we feel like the guys that are back have helped us get to this point. And I think we will talk about it, Nate, more as we get ready for the skull.
Yep.
And you've done all this after losing, the conference player of the year, Jordan Brown, transfer portal in June, and now he's not even in the Memphis program. Tough break for you guys. I hate it for him, but this is what happens in college basketball these days. Do you get a feeling about where your team is? 2 years ago, you go in as the 8th seed, and you get to the final. Last year, you go into the 2 seed, and you beat the 8th seed in the final. Any feel for where your team is? And you got the 2 regular season games left this week as you guys get ready to go to Pensacola, kind of the pulse of your team.
Yeah, we would like to split on this last trip again, at least. And we felt like we could get both, but we just didn't shoot the ball good enough. We got outshot from three, and that's something that we've been pretty good at. And
Yeah, y'all
our
couldn't hit a
percentage,
three at ULM to save your
our,
lives.
yeah. I mean, we struggled the second half at App. We went 1 for 10, and they flipped the script on us. They're not a great 3-point shooting team. And I think they shot 50% against us and made 7 or 8. So we've got to get that turned back around and make sure that we're defending. We were number 1 in the country in 3-point field goal defense last week. I don't know if we dropped out or not, but we just got to make shots. We got to play better defense and go in with a good frame of mind, and it'll help if we can win these 2 games this week at home.
Coach, I remember Kentrell Garnett, like getting them in bunches and getting them in streaks at Pensacola the last 2 years. So he's got to feel good, obviously, going back there as well. Hopefully in the top 4, but you'll see where it figures out.
Yeah, Kentrell's done a good job for us this year, been our best on-ball defender
Yep.
in the backcourt, and then has shot the ball well. He struggled a little bit late, like Kobe. Both those 2 guys have struggled in the last 4 games. We shot 24% as a team, and we got to do better in that regard. But Kentrell's been there, done that, as you said.
Yep.
He started in the championship game last year and made a couple of free throws in the last seconds to ice the game.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, he's a guy that if he gets going, 50% behind the 3-point line is nothing for him. He can do that easy. And it always seems to me, Coach, that with your team, you always got somebody who shows up. That's kind of unexpected, turns out to be a hero. You got any thoughts about that as your team gets ready to wrap up the regular season and head to Pensacola? Somebody who's kind of on the verge, maybe hiding and lurking in the weeds that nobody expects.
That's an interesting question, Matt, because last year at the NCAA practice, Stan Van Gundy asked me about our team, and he said, what about Julian? I like him. And he made that reverse layup against South Alabama, so you could tell he'd watched some film. And Kobe came out and played well. But, this game, I think Themis Fulks is a winner. He played really good in the championship game last year, led the league in assists. Certainly Joe Charles can be a force. And then Hosanna's a new guy that brings something different and brings a lot of energy to our team. And he and Joe and Kentrell, I mean, any of those guys can step up. And if we have 2 or 3 or 4 guys play well, we're pretty good. And we haven't done that recently. We've only had 1 guy play good at Southern Miss. It was Joe. Only had 1 guy play good at Monroe. And it's just, we've got to be more consistent.
Yeah, you just brought up Themis. He was like the spark that gets everybody going because he's so good with the ball and can distribute it so well. So you got, a lot of teams have 1 guy that if he plays well, they're going to be good. You got a lot of different options, and it like you said, it takes a couple, but you got a lot of different options as to who's going to be hot and when.
And I've said this before, that a lot of times in scouting, it's difficult to key on 1 or 2 guys for us.
True.
Because you don't know where the point's coming from. But yep. I don't know where they're coming from either, Nate. So it works both ways, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, Bob, the tournament's going to be crazy wide open. I think there's, at least 6 teams that can win this thing. And, of course, that includes your Louisiana Raging Cajuns. And now all of a sudden Southern Miss has got Curbelo and Hart back, and they look really scary with those guys playing well. Not to mention the 3 teams that have been at the top there all along, and that's James Madison, App, and Troy. And then you throw in Arkansas State, and nobody's scoring and playing hotter than those guys right now. So have fun getting ready for Pensacola. We appreciate you visiting with us today, and we'll be visiting with you next week during the tournament.
All right, guys, I appreciate it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Look forward to seeing you.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, Nate, time now to move on to our teams of the week. Who had the best weeks last week in the Sun Belt Conference? You go first.
Well, I'm going with the Arkansas State Red Wolves. Brian Hodgson, his first year, obviously, got 2 wins this past week, and they're on a little bit of a roll here with 2 to go. They jumped into first place in the Sun Belt in threes made, threes percentage. They're last in opponents' threes, but I don't think they really care. They're going to outshoot you from behind the line. They have Caleb Fields, who leads the league in assists and can score the ball as well, is responsible for a ton of points for that team. When you got great spacing and shooters that can make it from behind the line, and you got Caleb Fields, who's exceptionally good with the basketball, you're in a dilemma playing them. Do you guard the three, and then Caleb Fields can beat anybody one-on-one? Or do you worry about Caleb Fields, and if you go off one side, he's so good at finding the open man, he'll find the open guy for a three. So I think they're on a roll here. Thursday, they had 6 guys in double figures. That's impossible to guard. Saturday, they had 5 in double figures and one with 8 or 9. So they're spreading it out. They're not relying on 1 or 2 guys. And it's really working late in the year. They're buying into the system and a new system under Coach Hodgson, and they're playing really well.
Yeah, no doubt. Taryn Todd, Isaiah Nelson, enforcer down low, getting rebounds. Freddie Hicks, high flying. He had the spectacular dunk to kind of put the seal on that Troy victory. You got the 3-point bomber, the Marabono, as they like to call him, Avery Felts. They've got a team, and it's a dangerous team. And they could do a lot of damage. They could even win the Sun Belt Tournament Championship. So congratulations, Coach Hodgson, on what he's been able to do in a short period of time. So I was going to go with Arkansas State as my team of the week, but you took them first. So I'm going to go James Madison. You know, for all the things we've talked about earlier in this podcast, you know, they saved their NCAA tournament resume, if that even comes into play. But granted, they're down 19. It's their biggest comeback of the season. Down 19 on the road at Georgia Southern. They lose that game. There's no conversation about at-large bid anymore. So they had to win that game. They came back from 19 down to win that game. And, so that they're my team of the week. They're going to go into this tournament. In all likelihood, they're going to be the 2 seed, which means they wouldn't meet up with the number 1 seed App State until the finals, if at all. And App State's the team that's beaten them 2 out of their 3 losses this season. So James Madison will be my team of the week. We got a lot of big-time basketball coming up with that team still to play here this season. Starting five. Nate, you go first.
I know we got to pick not 5 guards, which was tough to do this week because the guards dominated the league in their play, but I found 5. Let's start off with Miles Tate from Appalachian State, the guard.
No doubt.
Only 24 minutes and 14 points in their Thursday win, but none of their starters played a lot of minutes because they won big in that game. But Saturday he plays 34 minutes. He has 25 points. He is not a starter. He does not start. And he gets 25 off the bench, made 4 threes in that great comeback at Georgia Southern that we were just talking about. Excuse me, that was wrong team. That was
Marshall. Was that Marshall? At Marshall.
That was a close game. That was not a blowout by any stretch. They got Marshall at the end. But like I said, he doesn't start. It shows great depth for their team because they got a bunch of guys that can score. Coach Kearns always says, I have 9 starters. Well, Miles Tate is one of those 9.
Miles Tate is also in my starting 5. The 25 you mentioned was a career high. 18 of those 25 came in the second half. And for the week, he had a total of 39 points, 12 rebounds, and 10 assists.
Second, for South Alabama and Richie Raleigh, I got Samuel Tabe. They list him as a guard.
He's on a bender. I mean, he is on a scoring bender.
They list him as a guard. I'd love to have a guard like that on my team. You know, when I did this, every week I try to think, can I win with these 5 guys? Well, with these 5, I can win. And Tabe's on a roll, no question about it. They list him at 6'5". Thursday, he only had 29 points. 10 of 14 from the field. He does not take threes. He just doesn't. He hasn't taken one all year. That's what I love about him. He does it in the mid-range game. He's got the body to go inside, big, wide shoulders. So 29 on Thursday. Saturday, not so good. He only had 27 on Thursday. So he's been lighting it up. He was 10 of 14 on Thursday. He was 9 of 17 on Friday. And like I said, all season, no threes. But he's a big-time scorer in the mid-range. And take it, you either play a bigger guy on him, who he's quicker than, or you play a smaller guy on him and he out-muscles him and just takes him to the rim. So Tabe had a great week.
He did indeed. 56 total points and 12 rebounds. And so he's on my team for the second straight week. He's in my starting 5. So get this, his last 4 games, he's averaged 26 points per game and 5 rebounds. That's pretty good.
And what you want to do as a coach and a player, you want to be good going into February and, of course, into March in Pensacola. There's only 2 left. If he can keep it going on, he's going to be big-time good for Richie Rowley and the team going down the stretch and then going to Pensacola. Next, leading assist man in the league on a really good team, Caleb Fields for Arkansas State. Thursday, 12 points, 9 assists. That's responsible for a lot of points. 5 rebounds, he plays 36 minutes. Saturday, 10 points, 11 assists. Number 1 in the league in the Sun Belt in assists. Number 1 in assist-to-turnover ratio. 3.3 assist-to-turnover ratio, 7 assists. But for the week, 20 assists, only 4 turnovers, and 5-to-1 assist-to-turnover. So not only does he dish out the ball to his teammates, he doesn't turn it over. That's no lost possessions for that team. Caleb Fields, as we talked about earlier, and I've talked to you about it before, is a capable candidate for Player of the Year in the Sun Belt.
No, I agree. I don't have him in my starting 5 this week. Perhaps I should have. I mean, you make a compelling argument, no doubt about it. And I also agree, of course, that he could be the Sun Belt Player of the Year when they hand out those awards next week. I'm going with Jacob Meyer, Coastal Carolina guard.
Good call.
Chanticleer's freshman continues to build his resume for Sun Belt Freshman of the Year. He had 39 total points, 13 rebounds, 5 assists for this young man who a year ago wrapped up his illustrious high school basketball career as the 10th all-time leading scorer in Kentucky high school basketball history. So, kid can score the ball. And so he's in my starting 5.
Number 2, Mr. Basketball in Kentucky. And he leads the Chanticleers in minutes as a freshman. From the get-go, he's been a starter. He's been really good. That's a great choice. My last 2 are for Mark Pynton's Dukes because of the great comeback they had with their season on the line as far as an at-large possibly. I'm going with Terrence Edwards first. Wednesday, 16 points in only 21 minutes. Once again, none of the starters played a lot of minutes in that game when they won. And then Saturday he has 20 points. He goes 0 for 4 from 3, but still has 20 points, 6 assists, makes 8 of 10 from the free throw line. He does so many different things for this team. And he's such a versatile player in that when he's not making threes, he can do it in other places. And he can make threes as well. He made 3 threes on the Wednesday game. So they're down 15 at the half. They come back to win. And Terrence Edwards is probably the guy that makes them go among a lot of other good players. But for Coach Byington and the Dukes of JMU, Terrence Edwards is pretty special.
Yeah, I'm thinking he's probably the Player of the Year, although Caleb Fields is certainly, a 1A, 1B type candidate. We'll wait and see how the coaches voted on that. But I had Terrence Edwards in my starting 5 this week. Tucker Tigers, I live here in Atlanta, and so he's an Atlanta kid, played for the Tucker Tigers. So one of the finest to come out of DeKalb County, no doubt about it, in the last 4 or 5 years. So he's on my starting 5 too.
My last guy, I'm going inside a little bit, TJ Bickerstaff. Second.
He's another Atlanta kid, might I point out.
Interesting. Well, we talked to Coach Byington in the last podcast. He said he loves the Atlanta area because of the great talent. He keeps going there. Bickerstaff second in the league in field goal percentage behind Ojiako at Coastal. So that's a great thing to have when you got a guy that can score at a high percentage inside. Wednesday, once again, now the starters didn't play a lot of minutes. He had 12 and 7 and only played 22 minutes. And then when they needed him most in that comeback win at Georgia Southern, he had 17 and 10. He was 7 for 8 from the field. He had 2 steals and a big second half comeback. When you got guys that they had a great start for the season, then they had a little lull, and now their season, as we talked about before, at large was on the line, and they just came back at a place where Mark Byington won a lot of games at Georgia Southern, and Bickerstaff helped them get that W. Once again, 2 to go. They're both on the road for them this week, and then they go to Pensacola. So they kept the roll going.
Sandy Creek Fighting Patriots out of Fayette County, below Atlanta. If you've ever flown into the Atlanta airport, their high school is probably about 20 minutes south of that. Played with Jabari Smith, high school teammates with Jabari Smith, the number 3 pick in the NBA draft. They didn't win a state title. They won a state title last year, but after those guys were gone. But yeah, and of course his uncle JB is the head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and his grandfather Bernie. Still in the NBA game at the age of 80, senior advisor for the Cavaliers and a 5-time NBA head coach. So he's been around the game, as they like to say, TJ Bickerstaff. I didn't have him on my team. My 5th member was, again, Nika Metsvarashvili out of ULM. This young man is playing his butt off after missing last year with a knee injury. Missed all but 5 games. Had another big week for a ULM team that quietly has been playing really good basketball since mid-January, and it's hard to notice because they're still at 6-10 in the conference, but been playing much better. They've won 7 of their last 11 games, just knocked off Louisiana last week, and Nika had 38 points and 15 rebounds for the Warhawks. And I think they're a little bit of a dangerous team. I'm not putting them in the category as a dangerous team that can win 4 games in Pensacola and win the tournament, but I think they're a team that you probably don't want to face. And right now it looks like they could be in that bottom 4, but that could change here by this time next week. Nika
Metsvarashvili, he's on a roll going in Pensacola, no question.
Time for our biggest game of the week.
Well, there's some good ones to finish the season, obviously, with only 2 left. But depending on what Appalachian State does in the midweek game, they got a big one March 1st. The regular season goes into March. Arkansas State and Appalachian State. That's going to be a heck of a battle. Arkansas State with their great
contrasting styles too. You're talking about a team
absolutely
pushing
Arkansas State with their threes from deep, and Caleb Fields doing his thing. And Appalachian State with their pack line defense, they don't let you get inside, but they're quick enough and athletic enough to guard you on the outside. That's senior day for them. That's their last game of the season. So that's going to be another packed house up there in Boone with maybe a game to get them the regular season title, or they might have deal that in the middle of the week. And then it'll be interesting if they do steal in the middle of the week, how they do to that last game.
Yeah, and certainly a game that, you're right. If they beat Old Dominion, they'll be heavily favored to do that on Wednesday. They clinch the regular season title. But to be outright and not share it with anybody, they probably got to win that game too. To be the
that's going to be a tough win.
16-2, regular season champs. Although they got the tiebreaker on James Madison. I think they want to finish strong. They've had a tremendous home record this year, tremendous home support. That's a tough spot for Arkansas State, as hot as they have been with 5 consecutive wins, to go in there and close out the season. And so much riding on that, which ties into my game of the week. And my game of the week is really kind of contingent upon what happens in your game of the week. If App beats Arkansas State, then that night Southern Miss and Louisiana could be playing for the number 4 seed and a double bye in the tournament. Now, a lot of caveats attached to that. That's a big one right there. But if App helps them out and these two teams take care of business midweek, then the stakes are high for their ball game on Friday at 7:30 Central on ESPN+. But the Raging Cajuns host Troy on Wednesday. No easy task. They got to win that one. The Golden Eagles will be at South Alabama on Wednesday. Again, no easy task. Got to win that one. But if both of them can win, or one of them wins, both of them have to win in order to be in position to jump into that 4 seed with a win on Friday, if indeed App helps them out and beats Arkansas State. Of course, Arkansas State is the team that controls their destiny in this entire equation. So, that should be fun. Both those games, a lot of implications tied into those 2 games. And the thing about it is, when Southern Miss and Louisiana take the court on Friday night, they'll already know.
Yeah,
I think. they'll have a pretty good idea as to whether this game is for the 4 seed or not. So should be a lot of fun.
So you're telling me they're just not going to play out the string? We got some importance in this last week.
Well, no, yeah, this isn't like the NBA where you've already clinched a playoff spot and you sit everybody down. App State, like you already mentioned, it's senior day. That unto itself is enough. It's senior day. They'll have a packed house. They will have already clinched the regular season title. Here's a chance to put it away. No one can tie you. You can go 16-2. The last thing they want to do is to lay an egg in that final game. So, and the contrasting styles. You got Arkansas State. They're pushing 80 to 90 points a game, and then you got App State, one of the top scoring defenses in the entire country, top 10.
Yep.
Allowing 65 or less a game. So, should be a lot of fun.
And you got the last game in the building for Donovan Monroe, the winningest player ever at Appalachian State.
Gregory.
Special
Donovan Gregory. Yeah.
Donovan Monroe. Donovan Gregory, right.
All right. So here's what the tournament looks like. There's been just some minor changes here. If the tournament started today, first round on Tuesday, March 5th, you would have 12-seed Coastal taking on 13-seed Texas State and 11-seed ULM taking on 14-seed Old Dominion. Out of that group of 4, there's no doubt ULM's playing the best right now, in my mind.
No, they are, no question about it. And we've seen teams like Texas State come from that first game, go a long way in the tournament.
Got to the semifinals last year.
Yeah, you get one guy hot, you get a couple guys hot. Everybody thinks, I always remember this in tournament play when I was coaching, everybody thinks they're going to win a tournament, but so does every other team. But you get one guy hot. Appalachian did it with a guard a couple years ago. Texas State did it by just playing great, as you said, to the semis. So it's possible. It's not likely, but it's possible. But you got to make your kids believe that we're going to Pensacola to come back with a trophy. To do it from the first round is tough to do, but we'll see what happens.
You're right. App State, Almonacee.
Yep.
Broke off the chain, man. He was
unreal.
In fuego. And then last year, Texas State with their guard. For whatever reason, my mind is John. I wanted to say Jordan Mason, but it's not Jordan Mason. But anyway,
Mason Harrell.
There you go, Mason Harrell. Yeah, Mason Harrell just had a phenomenal run there. All right, second round Thursday, March 7th. After a day off for the men, you got 8-seed Georgia State taking on 9-seed South Alabama. 5-seed Southern Miss against the Coastal Texas State winner. 6-seed Louisiana against ULM ODU winner. And 7-seed Marshall playing 10-seed Georgia Southern.
The situation is, and I've been this once again, I always look back to when I coached. It's spring break for most schools. How bad do these kids want to be there? Of course they all want to win, but maybe not having a great season when you're in the middle of the pack, you never know. That's when you really got to coach and you got to get them fired up. Yeah, you got to have the hot guy, but it's spring break. They're in Pensacola where it's really nice. So these are tough games to figure out who the favorite is or how they actually play. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, out of that group of teams we just mentioned, Southern Miss, for all the reasons, Curbelo and Hart we talked about already. They're dangerous, and Louisiana's got Bob Marlin. And they've been there, done that. I mean, they're a great tournament team. Would never count them out in any kind of scenario like that. Quarterfinals on Saturday, March 9th. These teams have had the double bye. You got number 1 seed App State. You got number 2 seed James Madison, number 3 Troy, and right now that's number 4 Arkansas State. Makes it hard to beat any of those 4 teams when they've had a whole week off. But we did see last year, as we say every time we do this podcast, 2 of those 4 top seeds got beat in the quarterfinals last year.
Yeah, and I'm sure the coaches have talked to other coaches. Rest or rust. What do we do? When do we get there? Do we let the kids watch the game? Do we not let them watch the game to see who we're going to play next? But they're the top 4 for a reason. They should win, but you just never know because it's college basketball. But they're playing really well, top 4. If Arkansas State can stay there, we'll find out. But the top 3 have been special all year.
And based on the seeding, if we have chalk, the semifinals would then be number 1 App versus number 4 Arkansas State. Number 2, James Madison versus number 3, Troy. And the finals would be, if we have chalk, number 1 App and number 2, James Madison on Monday. So
App and Arkansas State are going to play this Saturday. They might play the following Saturday again.
I know that makes for a very interesting twist to this whole scenario.
Yep, no question.
Yeah, a quick turnaround having faced each other. So be interesting to see what happens.
I can't wait to get down there. It's going to be great tournament.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and we invite you to attend the tournament, men's and women's. You can get your tickets through your member institutions. You can log on to any website. I'm sure you're going to find places to get your tickets, or you can go through Ticketmaster and purchase the tickets there at the Pensacola Bay Center. It's a great venue. They've been here now. I think this is what season? Is this season 4 or season 3?
I believe COVID was the first one. I believe it's 4.
Yeah, so 2020 was going to be in New Orleans and got blown out. So 21, 22, 23. Oh, so this is the 4th year they've had it now in Pensacola, and it's a great venue. You're there at the beach. You can stay there near the arena. You're still close to the beach, or you can stay out at the beach like some of the teams do and bus back across the bridge and be there at the arena in no time at all and just have yourself a little bit of a vacation with basketball on the beach. Hard to beat. And of course, if you can't be there, Nate and I will have all the games for you leading up to the championship. All the games, men's and women's, will be on ESPN Plus. So we invite you, if you can't be there, to watch on ESPN Plus and enjoy the tournament. Should be wide open. Got a couple of teams there at the top I think are really strong, but by no means do I think they're shoo-ins to get to the finals.
Sure.
Nate, enjoyed it, and we'll visit again next week, and we'll be previewing the bracket, and no more if the tournament started today. It'll be a for real bracket. We'll know who is seated where.
We will have opponents for sure. Definitely.